Welcome to the Eurostep Brit podcast.
Under 10 seconds. Game's going to be decided here. Harrell spots up. Doesn't go. Put back is good! Roberto Gallina with a second chance opportunity. Aris Lee. Per Gunther for three. Got it. Per Gunther, 3 punkter. Cullen, pull up three, no good. Orcus, the offensive board. He turns around and shoots. Got it at the buzzer!
Hello, and welcome to episode 34 of the Eurostep Brit podcast. We'll call this one Colorado Calling. A former England and GB international, Chris Haslam enjoyed a playing career that took him all over Europe before embarking on a coaching career. Now an assistant at Colorado State, in this episode we take a look back over his career that has taken him from Southport to Fort Collins. So, without further ado, let's get to it.
Chris, welcome to the podcast. It's great to get you on. As you're recording, you're a good few hours behind me. You're in the mountain zone. What's that? What's your zone called?
Mountain time zone.
Is mountain time zone. I'm in the UK, but you managed to find a time to get this recorded. I just want to start off with congratulations on your new job at Colorado State University.
First of all, thanks for having me on. Obviously, it's great to reconnect with you and have a chat. But no, it's been a whirlwind of the last 2 months. But very excited, and very blessed with this new opportunity at Colorado State. To come and join such a great program that has had tremendous success over the last several years. And then looking ahead, obviously being a part of the revamped, new Pac-12 moving forward, that becomes official on here in a few weeks, July the 1st. But now very excited about the new opportunity.
I'd say college basketball has changed quite a lot in recent years, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the conference realignments that have happened over the last 3-4 years, I mean, the landscape is really changed in college basketball. With like I said, the conference realignments, transfer portal, NIL, has really been a like I said, it's a different world right now than it was even 4 years ago.
I want to take you on to your career in a moment, but I just want to stick with college coaching for a minute. From what my research would say, you've had this sort of niche, obviously being a big man yourself when you're playing, of working with bigs in basketball. Has your coaching style changed a lot over the years? Obviously, basketball itself, the way it's played now, has changed quite a bit.
I mean, yeah. I mean, yes and no. Obviously, you're always evolving as a coach. It's funny. I was very fortunate to have some stability at Montana State. I was there for 10 years, and now this is my third move in 3 years, having gone Utah State, Oregon State for 2 years, and now here at Colorado State. So kind of learning now different systems and styles has been interesting and has been really good for me. But I think I'm still a little bit old school. Being, I was a true big man, in today's game where, it's 4 out, 1 in, or it could be 5 out, and you see the NBA game in the college game, bigs that can shoot and operate on the perimeter now rather than back to the basket, posting up inside and really trying to play almost smash mouth basketball. But, I still think, well, and actually, to be fair, if you look at this year's Final Four and the top teams in college this year, they were all big and physical inside. They were almost kind of throwbacks to 10, 12, 15 years ago with their size at the 4 and the 5 and, trying to win the paint at both ends of the floor. So I don't know now if the trend will start to go kind of back a little bit, but, I still think, having physical bigs with size who can control the paint at both ends is so imperative to success and win.
don't remind us how old we are, but I'm a similar age yourself, so I can remember basketball in the 80s, 90s, even with the NBA, how much it's changed. Yeah, the Larry Bird, Magic Johnson era is different to the Michael Jordan era, and obviously got LeBron James. You've got the changes. It's changed so much over the years. It could obviously change again, but I know where you're coming from. But let's take you back now. I want to, if I get it right, you originally came from you're originally from Southport up on
That's right.
Merseyside. That's correct.
Yep, that's
What
right.
was your first introduction to basketball?
So my first true introduction to basketball was at my high school, Birkdale High School. And just by chance, it was my, oh gosh, was it fourth year? Fourth year at high school, we had a PE teacher who played basketball. And we ended up playing basketball in PE. And that was my first real introduction to the sport. I mean, I'd seen obviously a little bit on TV back in those days on Channel 4. But we did basketball and PE, and that was it. That gave me the bug, and I fell in love with the game quickly. I was 15, 16 at the time, and obviously I was already tall. I was probably then 6'8" at 15 or 16. So obviously, I had success early because of my height, but I fell in love with the game really quickly. And from then I ended up playing at my local YMCA in Southport because they had some coaching sessions on the weekends. And I'd go Sunday mornings and get coached up and kind of junior basketball. And then it got to a point on Sunday evenings at the YMCA, the local senior team would have some training sessions and then play games. And I got lucky from that we played some local league games, and I ended up with Joe Forber at Chester Jets under 23s. Mike Burton was the head coach at Chester Jets, but Joe obviously did the junior coaching. So, there was me and a couple of other lads from the Southport YMCA had got invited to go train with the under 23s. So we'd go twice a week over and get coached by Joe, who, excellent youth coach, obviously excellent through the years, and how much talent he's produced, is unbelievable. But he coached me for a few months. But the big break that I got was, and it's again very lucky, there was an American guy named Bruce Parkinson who was a guard at Purdue University in the late 70s, early 80s, that through his work ended up living in Southport. He worked for an American company that had an office in Liverpool. So he ended up living in Southport for a year. And he came down to the YMCA. He was probably early to mid 40s, but he wanted somewhere to play open gym to play. So he ended up, of all places, at Southport YMCA. Wow. And then after a couple of months of playing with him, open gym, training, local league stuff, he asked me one day, have I ever thought about going to the States to play basketball? And obviously back then, there weren't many English lads or, had gone across to the States. Obviously, Buck and John Amici, there'd been a few. But it wasn't kind of the done thing. But at the time, I obviously never thought about it, didn't know what that entailed. But, originally I was going to go back with him and live with his family and go to the high school in Kokomo, Indiana, where his sons went to. But they had athletic rules, didn't allow international kids to come and play right away. There were some rules that it didn't allow that. And I remember having a conversation with Joe Forber and Mike Burton about this, and that, it hadn't panned out. Well, then Mike Burton knew a guy in Savannah, Georgia, made a call to him, who made a call to a high school coach, who then called me. And like 7-8 months later, I was in Savannah, Georgia at St. Andrews on the Marsh High School.
How old would you have been at this point?
So I was like 17 and a half. Like I'd only really been playing properly for about 9-10 months. 17 after, like coming up to 18. And I ended up doing a senior year of high school at St. Andrews in Savannah, Georgia. And that was my, break that honestly changed my life.
And what was it like for you, obviously living in the Northwest, suddenly going across to the States?
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously a big change. Didn't know what to expect. Thankfully, my parents, my mom and dad, were really supportive. Like, got to go try. You can always go home, but you don't want to have any regrets later in life. So I mean, that obviously really helped. They were like, go try. And it was a big, obviously, culture shock being in Savannah in the South, in the U.S., but just playing basketball at a higher level. Obviously, high school level, in the States is a lot higher than that age group I was at, 16, 17, 18 here in the UK. But it was a big culture shock, in the basketball, obviously more talent, everyone faster game. I was still raw. Obviously, at this point I was 6'11", but it did take me some time to adjust. But thankfully, the high school I went to, St. Andrews, was a 3A school. So it was a kind of medium-sized high school. It wasn't one of the big 6A classification schools where I think if I'd have gone to that size of a high school, I'd have got lost. It would have been too much for me. But thankfully, I was at a smaller high school where I kind of caught up to the level pretty quickly. Had a great high school coach, Coach Paul Hill, who worked hard, and obviously playing at a higher level, it just forced me to play and to work and to get to that level. And thankfully I did, and we won a state championship, had a great year, and from there got recruited to, the Division I level, college level, and ended up at all places in Laramie, Wyoming, at the University of Wyoming.
So how would it have worked back then? The recruitment would obviously, because again, we talked pre-interview, you like tapes being sent, or scouts would have come, or would your coach phoned people?
Right.
How would it
Well,
work?
obviously this was pre-internet days, right? Obviously not YouTube and all of that stuff. So a lot of it obviously was word of mouth. So I got recruited by kind of schools from all levels, from Purdue, Florida State, Virginia Tech, to Wyoming, to South Florida, American University. I had a lot of interest because obviously here's this 6'11" English lad that suddenly appeared out of nowhere. So I got lucky that, on a good high school team, had quite a bit of interest. But coaches would come in and watch. Obviously, VHS videotape. My high school coach sending VHS videotapes out to coaches and different programs, and it was word of mouth. And again, it just so happened that the coach I played for at the University of Wyoming, a guy named Joby Wright, well, he was from Savannah. Now, he was head coach at Miami of Ohio when I first got there, but then he got the job at the University of Wyoming that spring, after my high school season had finished. And again, because of his contacts in Savannah, being from Savannah, I told him, hey, there's this 6'11" kid that you need to go check out. And he just got the job at University of Wyoming, and they needed players, needed bigs. So through his contacts in Savannah, that's how University of Wyoming found out about me being, obviously it's a long way away from Laramie, Wyoming to Savannah, Georgia. But that's how the connection was. And I went out on a visit and signed, and that's where I played my college ball for 4 years.
You said just about the University of Miami, Ohio. I always remember, made me laugh whenever I heard that. I'm trying to think, was Ron Harper maybe went there?
I believe so, but Wally Zerbiak was there.
Yeah. Well, he's Celtics fan, so I remember Wally played for him for a while. Obviously, he played Minnesota as well, didn't he?
Yeah.
So you've had your year in Georgia, and then you're off to Wyoming. How was that experience for you? Because obviously it's way out there, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's actually it's 45 minutes north from where I am right now here in Fort Collins, Colorado. So, but that was another culture shock. I mean, it was, going from Savannah, Georgia to Laramie, Wyoming. Now you're in the Rocky Mountain region. Wyoming Cowboys, and Cowboys is what you saw and what you get. And the pickup trucks and the cowboy hats and the cowboy boots and the bell buckles that you saw on TV, you're thinking, oh, it's just American TV or shows or movies. Nope, it's real life. But, Laramie was a small college town, but great fan support. And at the time, they played in the WAC conference, which is now the Mountain West, but was an excellent, high major conference. If you look at the teams that were in it back then in terms of BYU, Utah, UTEP, San Diego State, Hawaii, Colorado State, really good teams, really good players. I mean, NBA players in the league. If you think Keith Van Horn, Michael Doliak, Andre Miller. I played with Theo Ratliff my first 2 years, who was an NBA lottery pick.
Hawks, he went to, was it Hawks?
And Hawks, he was NBA Defensive Player of the Year, was an all-star. So, tremendous league. But that was, again, another transition period. When I first got to Savannah, Georgia, I was a little bit, deer in the headlights. Well, now it absolutely was a deer in the headlights. Again, another level up. Everyone big, fast, strong, athletic, and just the level of play is something I hadn't seen or been around before. So, my freshman year was like a typical freshman, up and down, freshman mistakes. But, I did see a little bit of playing time my freshman year. And then my sophomore and junior years, I started pretty much every game. And then my senior year, I had a knee injury going into my senior year that I didn't play so much. But, overall, I mean, a heck of an experience. Again, playing against, the programs that we played against, the players I played against, it was unbelievable 4 years.
How did your game change over? Did you spend all 4 years there with Wyoming? Then
yes. Yeah.
How did your game change over that time?
And then, to be honest, at that time, basketball, again, it was, a big man is a big man. Be on the block, set screens, roll hard, post up, play with your back to the basket. It wasn't, never operated a little bit in the high post. If I took like a jump shot from, the elbows or the free throw line and didn't make it, you'd hear about it. Taking a three, not a chance. Back then it was very much operate on the block, be a great screener, rebound, be a force in the paint. And really, it was my last year at Wyoming when we were playing Utah. Keith Van Horn was at Utah, and he was one of the first bigs where he was a skilled big and had the freedom to play on the 3-point line, shoot threes, drive, essentially play like a point guard. Get a rebound, bring the ball up the floor, be a facilitator. And it started to change just kind of after I left. But I really was just a true five at that point. And even though I could shoot and I had nice touch, just that wasn't the style of play for five men in Division I. And it really wasn't. After I got done at Wyoming, that summer I went to training camp with the national team, with the England team, with Laszlo. Laszlo Nemeth was the head coach, who was unbelievable. Was unbelievable for me personally. And Nick Nurse was the assistant coach. And we had training camp in the summer in, I want to say Budapest, but we were playing. And, I'm on the 3-point line. I don't look to shoot. I just move, screen. And Laszlo really, during that training camp was like, if you're not able to shoot the ball, or if you're not going to look to shoot or play on the perimeter, I can't play you, because they needed spacing for a premium. And it just, from that point on, I, worked on my shooting and stretching my range, and actually developed into a pretty good shooter, kind of for most of my career from the outside.
When at this point in your career, obviously when you were back in the States, college and stuff, you would have a chance to watch NBA or watch other college teams, stuff like that. Were there any like bigs of that era that you used to look to and try and take things and put into your game?
Well, that era was kind of, I think, arguably the golden era of big guys, when you had Akeem Olajuwon, Patrick Ewing, David Robinson, bigs like Robert Parrish. Bigs like that were, every NBA team had a big that they'd play with their back to the basket. So obviously, I was always a big fan of Akeem Olajuwon, and I really liked Kevin McHale growing up.
One of my favorites.
His array of post moves and Akeem Olajuwon's post moves are unbelievable. So, that era in the NBA was phenomenal for post up bigs.
So you said about Ken McHale because he was one of my favourite players of that era. He was a 4, but he could play as a 5. He could play. Could you just out of curiosity in your career, do you ever sort of play 4 and 5 or just big?
Yeah, I played a little bit of both. I played 5, and then I did play some 4, and then obviously when I got older again and the knees had gone, back to the 5 spot. But yes, I kind of played in between. On the national team, I played many years with Andy Betts, me and him together. Because I could shoot a little bit, and obviously Andy was such a unbelievable big, such a dominant big, very underrated. But he was phenomenal to play with. But I played, kind of moved between the 5 and the 4.
Before we get on to your club career, can we then talk about the national team? Because you played for Laszlo, and I think what was called the pot noodle era, because it was tough times for England team especially. And then I think your last couple of years internationally, you did play for the GB team, didn't you?
Right, that's right. Right before the 2012.
So your England career, there were some tough times, weren't they? Every time you with the national team, I'm not about on the floor, just literally the whole organisation, the lack of money, all this sort of thing. How did you cope with that?
Well, yeah, looking back and even during the time, it's very frustrating because we had talent. We had really good, talented players, but obviously the funding, the structure, the support, and the resources weren't at the level that was required. And like I said, I give Laszlo all the credit in the world. He did everything he could for us. I don't know whether I should say this, but I know he spent money out of his own pocket to make sure we had meals, food, shoes, gear, whatever it was, that we were looked after. He went above and beyond for us. And it was just always so frustrating because if we had the proper, funding and support with the talent that we had in those years, I really think, we could have had tremendous success and been playing in the European Championship level back then, and winning games.
Do you have any standout moments from the England era? Anything, any other personal games or wins that really satisfying for you?
I mean, big one obviously is always, the first time you make your national team appearance playing for your country. We played against Israel at the MEN back then, and it was a great game. Obviously, Israel, a very good team, but standing there, obviously listening to the national anthem pre-game. Special moment, obviously, always special moment to represent your country. But I mean, I'm trying to think of wins. I mean, I know, big wins. I remember beating Lithuania. We had a huge win in Latvia, huge win on the road. But I mean, we did get some really good wins. I remember beating Czech Republic, and we'd always have a surprise result, which showed you what we could do. If again that the talent was there, but honestly, I look back at fond memories of the pot noodle era, of those bus rides. I remember having to fly into Vienna, and I think Laszlo had a friend pick us up in a minibus with a trailer hitched in the back for our luggage, and we had to drive however many hours across the border into Slovenia. I think was it Slovenia or Slovakia.
So it's for 11, and you're in a minibus.
Yeah, and if you think that there's Andy Betts, there was me, there was Mike Bernard in this minibus, the hours across to the border and getting across. But those, as frustrating it was, those moments with your teammates, the camaraderie, special memories. Honestly, special memories.
And then later on in your career, because obviously the program was off for a while, and then obviously the Olympics comes around, and there's a chance to form the GB team. So you played for GB right at the beginning. So were you there when, say, the likes of Lol Deng were coming into the GB setup?
Right. So then I remember getting, obviously, GB with the Olympics coming up, the funding, obviously Chris Finch getting the job, being head coach, that he called that first training camp together in at the IMG Academy in
Florida.
Brit, in Florida.
Yeah.
So we all went out, and that's the first time I had met Luau. He came, and we had the training. But actually, sorry, it was before that. It was a cycle before that when we had to qualify. So it was still
Division B.
Yeah, Division B, and we ended up in like Albania, and gosh, we had to qualify, and Roger Huggins was still playing at the time, but the funding, Andrew Sullivan, the funding was Nate Rankin was on the team then. The funding was much better. We had a better training camp, better obviously, facilities, hotels, longer period together, and we ended up qualifying out of the B division, and that's when the next cycle, the next year, we ended up at the training camp in IMG Academy, and it was, night and day. It was unbelievable, the facilities there and what we had access to, and obviously Luau was there, Rob Archibald was there. It was fantastic.
I'd say it must be just such like night and day compared to those, what we say, the pot noodle era of the England team.
Again, that's how it should have been the whole time. And again, seeing what was the funding for that, again, it just comes back to the frustration. If we could just have had something like that for those England years, I think we could have had tremendous success.
And then we'll move on to club career now. So you spent those years at Wyoming. What was your thinking as you came your senior year? What were you going to do next? Did you have like an agent, or you were trying to just find something?
Well, that last year, like I said, I was injured. I think I only played in 12, 15 games, maybe half the games. I had a knee injury. I had to have surgery. I thought, okay, I might just come back to the BBL to play. But then the Bosman rule came in. The Bosman ruling came in, and that changed everything. Obviously, with my passport now being more valuable. So then like I said, that summer I was with the national team. We were in Budapest. We played some games against the Austrian national team as well. So I didn't have so many options. But it basically came down to the Birmingham Bullets and a team in Austria, because with the national team, I played in those couple of games pretty well. And one of the club team in Austria, I can't remember who it was, had offered me a contract too. But kind of through Nick Nurse, with him being an assistant coach on the national team, and obviously he just left, Mike Finger had come in to be head coach. We talked about it, and through kind of his guidance, and I ended up being at the Birmingham Bullets for my rookie year.
And let's talk about it. What was the BBL like for you in those days, your first experience of playing in it?
It was a great league. I tell people all the time, that year, over that period, those 3-4 years, I thought it was a great league. Pretty much all the teams played in arenas. If you look at the quality of players that were throughout the league, obviously, it's great coverage on Sky. What was it? Budweiser and then Dairy Lee were the sponsors. There was multiple live games each week. There was even a highlight show during the week as well. It was fantastic. That season, obviously, just with the Birmingham Bullets, obviously, Tony Dorsey, Nigel Lloyd, Reggie Kirk, Tony Sims, Clive Allen, Fab, myself, H.L. Coleman. We had a really good team, and had a fantastic year. We won the playoffs, so it was a really good league back then. Really good league.
And do you remember who you beat in that playoff final?
So if my memory serves right, I believe we beat Manchester Giants in the semi-final, and then it was Thames Valley Tigers in the final, who had a really good team. Really good team. Like I said, I just remember having to bang around with Tony Holly and Jason Seaman, who were two workhorses. Tony Holly was so good. And they had John McCord, I believe, was on that team. But yes, I think we snuck out a close one in the final.
Yes, I left immediately on the buzzer. I was there supporting the Tigers, right out the top at Wembley Arena.
Wembley Arena, that's
straight out the door. Straight out the door. I was not happy.
That's it.
Am I over it 28 years later? I'm not sure. But no, that's great. I had Tony Holly on a while back, and it was great to catch up with him. He's
always very, very popular at the Tigers. So you finished that season at Birmingham, hands on the playoff title. I believe this is when you first made your move into playing into Europe, yes?
Yeah. So after that summer, my agent got me selected or invited to. They had a big Nike camp in Treviso, Italy, in the summers back then. A showcase where players would go play. There'd be a bunch of agents, general managers, teams. So I got in that, and I want to say it was probably around 50 or 60 players played, and you played over 2 days, split you into teams and just played. And I played well that weekend, and actually they had kind of like a all-star team, 10 players play the Italian national team on the Sunday, the last game of the day, and I played in that. And from that, I got some contract offers for mainland Europe, and ended up in Patra, Greece, for my second season, which would be 98, 99.
So Greece, obviously top division back then, weren't they, Patrick?
Oh, yes.
And then obviously you're going up against the likes of Olympiacos and Panathinaikos, which you played like Ike and Pauk as well, these sort of teams. That must have been a great experience going up against these giants of Europe.
Oh, unbelievable. Again, just, how big basketball is over there. The fans, you hear all the stories of the fans, the craziness, it was, you go on the road, you had a police escort to the game. The fans are at you all the games. If a call goes against the home team, or, throwing coins and batteries and phones on the floor. It was unbelievable atmospheres. And to play against those big teams, Olympiacos, Panathinaikos, Pau Karis. Again, unbelievable players. Playing against Bodiroga at Panathinaikos. Unbelievable experience. And again, having to play at that level, and always trying to improve, to be able to be successful. It was an unbelievable year. I had a great time with my team. We just missed out on the playoffs, but it was, again, to play at that level and to see how big basketball could be in a country was eye-opening.
Would you experience that playing for England, or was this the first time you experienced those sort of crowds in Greece?
Yes, obviously hadn't really experienced that with the national team, and obviously, playing in front of big crowds at Wyoming or at the Division I level, yes, but obviously, as we know, it's a different type of crowd, completely different. But that's what you play the game for, to play at the top level, to play in those kind of environments. And like I said, very, very lucky to play at that level and play against those teams and players.
So any particular games that year in Greece that stood out for you? Because obviously you played against some big teams, but do you have any memorable wins or performances?
Well, I don't know about memorable wins or performances, but I do remember we were playing Panathinaikos at home, in Patra. And our gym was, it was smallish. It was probably, I don't know, 4,000, 3,500, 4,000. And it's packed, obviously. Panathinaikos has come. And, obviously, great team. Bodiroga, Dino Roger was on that team too. And it was the first time we played Panathinaikos that season. And it was myself, and then we had an American on our team, Donnell Robinson, who played at Arkansas when he was on their national title winning team of 1993 or 92 or something, 93, 94, where they beat Duke. Maybe it was 90, 96. Anyway, but he was 6'10", should have played in the NBA. So there was me and him at the 5. And Dino Roger gave us like 25 and 12 without breaking a sweat. And it was so easy for him. And obviously, he'd come from the NBA. He was with the Celtics. And
he was, yeah.
Was with the Celtics, and then he ended up back in Greece. And he was so good. He was so good. And he gave us, it was literally a man against two boys out there. And I still remember that to this day.
At the time, you probably despise him, but you know what I mean? Because he's just beating up on you guys. But later on, it's one of those things you can look back fondly on, isn't it?
Yeah, totally. And he really was. He was so good, and just it was effortless for him. But that was the standard. He was arguably the best big man in Europe that year. That was the standard.
So your year in Greece comes to an end. Was it just the one season you spent
Yeah,
there?
just one season. Yep.
So at this point, did you have an agent, or were you still negotiating everything
No, I
yourself?
had
Or
an agent. It was the same agent that I kind of signed with right out of Wyoming with a guy named Andy Miller. So big American NBA agent. I was his minnow, his tadpole, but it was always good for me. But from so then the next season I went to Belgium, and I ended up in Belgium for the next 3 years.
I'd say it's one of the things after Bosman, quite a few Brits ended up in one other capacity in Belgium,
Yeah,
didn't
there
they?
was a lot of us. Roger Huggins, Andy Gardner, Mark Hawley, myself. There was quite a few of us that played in Bosman, and it was at that time again. Belgium was a really good league. Charleroi, Ostend, Liège. I mean, really, really good teams. Antwerp was really good. It was a great league to be in.
I don't really know much about the Belgium league in that, I know about the BNXT these days, but what
Right.
was that like? Were you also playing in Europe, pan-European competition as well as domestic?
So, because I played for Pepinster, um, Pepinster for a couple of years, but then yes, we played. They had the what was the name of it? It was the I can't remember the name of it now. It was the
Something like the Korech Cup or something, was it?
no,
No,
no, it was like the Northern European Basketball
oh, the
League,
NEBL. Was it?
NABL. That's right. And you played against a lot of the Scandinavian teams. So we were in that competition as well. I remember we actually played against the Bullets. The Bullets were in it one of
Yep.
those years that they came in. But it was honestly it was a great league. I played well. We made the playoffs. It was Belgium. I had a really good experience where I was in Belgium. I was very lucky, kind of geographically, that I could drive 20 minutes north. I was in Holland. 30 minutes east, I was in Germany, and about 30 minutes south, I was in France. So it was a great area to be in. I really, really enjoyed my time there.
Were you in the Flemish or French speaking part
I
of?
was in the French speaking part.
Did you
So I,
while you're playing in Greece and obviously Belgium and later on you got other countries, were you able to pick up the language at all or?
yeah, I tried to at least learn some basics. And I think, that was playing basketball was great, but also living in these countries and experiencing different cultures, languages, food, seeing the different sites. I'd always tried to make a point of days off or time off of going to sightsee, going to drive around, see new places, and try and soak in and learn from these experiences. So I was very lucky, throughout the course of my career in mainland Europe, where I was able to live and visit some fabulous places.
So Belgium's a lovely country, and obviously, like so you play in Greece. So you spent 2 years there. What happened next?
So then I went to Germany for a year. I played in the Bundesliga for a year, and then went back to. Then after that, I played in that for a year. Then I went back to play back in Belgium at Liège. So that was
Oh,
my next.
oh, yes, you played. Was it Mitteldeutsche, known as
That's
MBC? You played.
right. Yeah, that's right. Located on the eastern side, the old communist side. Small town, but obviously great fans. Great league. Bundesliga was a great league to play in.
It's
Again,
one of my favorite leagues. It's
really good players, great setup. Alba Berlin, Frankfurt, Cologne at the time, excellent league. Telecom Bonn was really good, but yeah, really, really, really good basketball again. My team was just okay, but I played pretty well that year, and then I ended up going back to Belgium to Liège for a year, and I played there with Mark Hawley and Andy Gardner with my teammates that year in Liège.
what's it like there? Because you're in a foreign country and you got guys you know from back home. What's that like? Does that make it easier for you?
Yeah, of course. Obviously, I've known the two of them a long time. I played on the national team with Andy Gardner for many years. But it does, having a couple lads on the team that you have a relationship, you can hang out with. I mean, it really does make things, more comfortable for you.
And then from Liège, where did you go to next?
Oh, great question. From
What sort of
Liège,
year are we looking around? What sort of year would this been about?
so
Because you
Liège
went
would
to
be
you went to
then
Italy for a while, didn't you?
next. So Italy was 2003.
Yeah.
Uh, I was in Italy for the next 3 years.
I
So
got
I was in
Messina,
Messina. I was in Messina. Um,
Livorno or
then
Livorno.
the second year and my third year, I started at Teramo,
Yeah.
and then got cut. I didn't play well that first half of the year, and I went to Trapani, back down in Sicily,
Yeah.
for the
Yeah.
second half of the year, Christmas onwards. But
So
I
what?
mean, Italy
So
was great.
yeah. So you've played in Belgium, you've played in Greece, you've played in Germany. What was the Italian league compared to that? Because obviously, Italian league been up and down over the years, but when it's good, it's been really good.
Yeah, I mean, it was a more skilled league. You think of Greece and the Bundesliga in Germany, very physical. Physical league, lots of contact. Um, Again, for lack of a better word, I mean, obviously highly skilled players, but kind of smash mouth basketball, very physical. Whereas in Italy, it was a bit more skilled. Um, the bigs, there weren't as many power bigs back then. So it was a bit more of a skilled league. But again, very good teams. The two Bologna teams were very good. Benetton Treviso at the time, exceptional team. But again, obviously, highest level of basketball in Europe at the time.
And from there, you ended up the following year. I don't know which way around it was. You played in the Czech Republic, but you also had a spell at London
Yeah.
United.
So
Which way
that
around did
was
that happen for
so
you?
I actually had a spell at London United for a couple of months. I
Hmm.
hadn't got after that last year in Italy. I didn't really get the contract that I wanted or in mainland Europe. So I ended up playing at London United for a couple of months for Tony Garboletto.
Yeah.
Um, and then I got the offer to go back into mainland Europe to the Czech Republic.
I have to ask you about London United. What was that experience like, the brief time you were there?
It was, I mean, again, the BBL wasn't what it was after
Mm.
my first year out of university when I played with the Bullets. It really dropped off in especially just resources, right? I mean, everyone was playing in sports halls rather
Yeah.
than that year with the Bullets, everyone was in arenas. So it's mainly just in small sports halls. I mean, the fan support was still good. I mean, we had talent on the London United team, and there was still talent around the league, don't get me wrong, but just the structure of it all, it had really dropped off from what I remembered from the Bullets.
When you went there, did Tony know you were just trying to find somewhere for the season, or do you think you might have ended up the year there? Do you know?
Well, it was, obviously I've known Tony a long time with the national team and he coached me, but it was the understanding, hey, I don't have anything, come play. If something comes, that I have the green light and I'm able to be let out my contract. If it doesn't, then yes, I'll stay there the whole year. And the team was good with that. Tony was okay with that. So we were both upfront and honest with each other from the onset.
And how did the opportunity to go to the Czech Republic come about?
So just my agent, I had a team in Sweden that wanted me, the team in the Czech Republic, and there was a team back in Germany that came and they needed a big or wanted to make changes around Christmas time in the December period. But I felt the best offer and the best situation for me was out in the Czech Republic. So I went to Novi Jičín, I think is how you pronounce it. It's about
I'll let
an
you
hour.
pronounce it. Yeah.
It was about an hour and a half. I think east of Prague,
Mm.
but small town, good basketball team. They'd always had success, made the playoffs, but again had a good second half of the season there. Enjoyed my time. I'd never been to the Czech Republic, never played in that league, but really enjoyed those 5 months there.
What was the level of basketball like out there?
It was similar to Belgium, mid-level. Some good teams. The top kind of 4 or 5 teams were really good players, but good style. Like I said, I played pretty well, so really enjoyed my time there.
Now, I must admit, when I was trying to research, then got a little gap in your career. What happened to you between the Czech Republic and then eventually coming back to England?
So no, I went. So that summer, I played after the Czech Republic was playing with the GB team,
Hmm.
um, and then again, I know I've only got a couple more years in me at this point. I was 33, could be 34, 33 at this time. So I'm starting to wind down my career. So at this point, I'm just looking to, you know, obviously try and make as much money as I can,
Yeah.
and
Mm.
still play at a solid level. But then the Everton Tigers opportunity came around. I was playing with the national team. Again, it was getting later in the summer. Again, didn't really have the contract offers for mainland Europe. His agent was saying, just wait, just wait. And suddenly I get a call from Henry Mooney in Liverpool saying that Everton Football Club are starting basketball team going to be called the Everton Tigers. I'm from Southport. It's about 25-minute drive into Liverpool, 30 minutes. And would I have any interest? So it started similar to the London United situation. Okay, I'll come. But if something comes in mainland Europe, I'm able to go, no problem. But halfway through that first year, it was literally November. They came to me with a 2-year contract extension, guaranteed. Would I be interested? And actually, it was actually pretty good money. I probably might have been able to make a bit more going back into mainland Europe, but for where I was at, 34, 35, 2 more years, I could live at home or in my hometown. I had 2 young daughters at the time, so being around my parents, my family. Tony Garbaletto was the coach. Henry started, but Tony Garbaletto was the coach. So I said, absolutely, why not? It was at that point of my career and where I was with my life. It was a great deal, a great situation, and that's where I finished my career.
Now, growing up in Stockport, I have to ask you, being the Everton Tigers, were you a football fan growing up?
A huge football fan, still am to this day.
Blue or red at all, or someone else?
Or someone else is the Red of Manchester. The Red of Manchester is my
Right,
team.
this interview's now over. So you get to go play for Everton. Obviously, people know the history of Everton, the sort of boom and bust of it. What was that experience like for you being around the club? 'Cause I said it had some great times. You'd go, you'd win some silverware, but also there were some tough times. Were you there during the really tough times at the end?
At the end of my last season there, so that year was a bit rocky.
Hmm.
It was rocky, but the first 2 years were great. The again support and the resources put in by Everton Football Club was great. Oh, practice place. Okay, we played in the kind of sports hall there in Liverpool, but overall they took pretty good care of us. We got paid on time. The money was good. Tony Garbaletto, the standard, how we practice, what we got. I mean, it wasn't bad at all for the first 2 years. And then that kind of third year, the money or the support just fell away. You could tell it was falling away that last year I was there.
Had you already made your mind up, regardless of what was going on, that this was the end of your
Yes,
career?
I was fortunate. My last year going into that last season, I knew that this was it. I was 36, going to be 37 or 36. And I physically, knees had gone, just wasn't, a shell of, I don't know if a shell of the guy I ever was, whether that was any good. But I knew my last year was going to be my last year. It wasn't like I had an injury that forced me to quit. I was able to retire on my own terms, which was nice after 13 years and really doing the full circle. If you think I started at Birmingham Bullets, played all those years, went abroad and finished back in England. And my last game was back in Birmingham, where we won the playoffs. So I went out on a high, got to win my last ever game. And I don't know how many players can say that.
Yeah, that is good, isn't it? You're going out
Yeah.
on those terms. You got to play
were some really good players on those Tigers teams. Because obviously when they had the money, they had to bring in a lot of talent. Who do you remember playing with, and who was fondly? Who do you fondly remember as teammates on that roster?
Well, I played.
Those rosters.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I played with Tony Dorsey again. He was a year older than me. I mean, and he was still obviously the true veteran, heck of a player. I have a big admiration for Tony Dorsey and how good he was. And obviously, we became close. We were teammates. Obviously, he got naturalized. He played with the national team too. So obviously, played with Tony for many years. I played with Richard Midgley when he first came out. Unfortunately, he had an injury that forced him, but he was super talented. Golly,
David Aliu was on one of those teams, wasn't he?
David Aliu, Olu Babalola,
James Jones, Olu, yeah.
Olu Babalola, I'd say, as talented as one of the most talented English lads I played with. I mean, physically, 6'6", 250, 60 pounds, could run and jump like a guard, ultra talented, just a mismatch nightmare. David Aliu, again, could really shoot, strong as an ox, great teammate.
Was Harriman one of your teammates?
Delmy.
Yeah.
So Delmy, and I'd known Delmy from, he grew up in Widnes since we were both 17, 18. We played on the World Student Games team together, played on the England team for all those years, and he was part of the Everton Tigers team, being a local lad as well. So, I mean, Delmy, ultra talented, had an exceptional career as well. So, and also, who I can't forget about, Andre Smith. Unbelievable. He was played power forward, American, played at North Dakota State, came over his rookie year. Unbelievable, fantastic player. I actually believe he was leading the league in scoring that year. And it went into Europe, had a really successful career at the highest level in Turkey, but phenomenal foreman in the BBL.
Let's bring you around to the end. So you've said this was your last season. Had you really decided, do you know what, I want to give coaching a go? Because I believe, if I'm right, when you were at Everton, did Tony get you to coach one of the junior teams or academy?
Yeah, I always wanted to, kind of halfway through my career, I always liked the X's and O's, the strategy side of things. Mm-hmm. I wasn't the best athlete at all, so I had to kind of use my brain more, my feel, and I think I had pretty good, basketball IQ as a player because I was limited athletically. But kind of halfway through my, my career, I always thought I would like to get into coaching. And Tony Garboletta was really, really great to me that last year that the Everton Tigers started an academy team. And he asked me if I wanted to coach the academy team, knowing that I wanted to get into coaching. So I did that last year. And knowing that my last season was going to be my last season, I spent a lot of the time during that year to, try and get an opportunity to coach at the college level back in the US. So I knew I was going to go back. My ex-wife, my wife at the time, was American. We'd met at college at Wyoming, that we'd go back to the States. And I, used that year to speak to people, make contacts to try and get a foot in the door at the college level back in the US. So then I ended up, my first coaching job was at junior college level at Lamar Community College here in Colorado. So that was as an assistant coach, and that was my first coaching job here in the US.
So you sort of went full circle in your playing career. You've gone full circle, Colorado to Colorado in your coaching career. So yes. How does it work becoming a US college coach? How does it?
It's not easy. Obviously, I mean, very competitive business, very competitive, and it's really a lot of it is who you know, and obviously who knows you. Recruiting is a big part of it. Of what players you can get, what players you can recruit, what players can you bring to a program. But it's not an easy business, and it's cutthroat, and there's a lot of pressure. So there's no days off, but it's a fantastic world to be in.
I always like to ask players who've moved into coach, question. What was it like when you gave up? Was because you knew it was the end of your career, was that an easy transition for you, or is there still some difficulties? Because obviously you get used to that routine, don't you?
Sure.
Training, get games, and then suddenly you're on the sidelines telling people what to do. Was that an easy transition, or did it take time?
It definitely took some time that summer. So obviously I'd retired, and I got the job at Lamar, I believe, in July that summer. Near the end of July, and ended up getting out there in the beginning of August. But it was actually when I was moving to Lamar to go start the job there. That would have been kind of the same time that I would have been heading back over to Europe to play, to start training camp. And it was a weird feeling after all those years of, I obviously wasn't really working out as much, and just, again, missing that competitive, because that's what I've only known since 17, 18 is playing. And suddenly now that stopped. So it did take a little bit, those first few months that, August, September, October, I should have been overseas, but then you're coaching, but then you just dive in to the coaching aspect, and you fulfill that competitive side through the coaching part now.
And then later on, you get to go to Montana State. Now, obviously, all these years you went to Greece, you went to Belgium, Germany, Czech Republic, and then you probably end up spending as much time with Montana State. Was it a decade you were there for, I think? Yeah, decade.
There for 10 years, yes.
Now, how did you get that opportunity to go there to coach?
So I'd been 3 years at Lamar, and during that third year at Lamar, had a coach, Sean Durden, who was an assistant coach at Montana State at the time, and we're the same age. And we'd actually connected when I was coming back I'd go back to Wyoming in the summers from playing overseas. In the off season, I'd go back to Laramie because my ex-wife was from Wyoming. And then I could also work out and play with the players over the summer. I could work out, lift in the weight room, play with them, play open gym, do the workouts, keep in shape. Well, Sean Durden, who was an assistant coach at Montana State, he's from Denver, Colorado. He would actually come up and work the Wyoming camps in the summer because he was a young coach, a young high school coach in Denver. So we connected then, and he remembered me when he was coming to Lamar to recruit the players that we had there. And, we stayed in contact that year, that third year I was there at Lamar. And he called me at the end of the season and said, we've got 2 spots open on staff. 2 of the assistant coaches have moved on. Would I have any interest? Absolutely. So then I, started communicating with the head coach at the time, a guy named Brad Hughes, interviewed for the job, and he offered me the job. And that's how I ended up in Bozeman that year of summer of 2013.
What stands out for you during your decade with Montana State?
Well, I mean, golly. It was a fantastic learning curve. When I first got there to Division I, looking back, I don't know if I was truly ready to be a Division I assistant coach. The Big Sky Conference was very good, low to mid-major conference, but just learning what Division I entails, the recruiting aspect, game preparation, scouting reports, player development, just coaching at a higher level, and the expectation and how much you're basically a professional. It's pro sports just at the college level. The expectation, the pressure to win, it was just a bit eye-opening. And being at that level is a learning curve.
Is it Jabril Bello play for you?
Yeah. So before that, the first English kid I recruited was Bradley Fisher and Cavell Bigby Williams. My first year, at the end of my first year, was Bradley Fisher, who played for Neil at Myerscough, and then Cavell Bigby Williams, who was playing for Steve Bucknell down at the Thunder, London, down there. So I recruited. Those were the first 2 English kids that I'd signed, And then Cavell didn't make the grades. He got a D in his math GCSE, which made him a non-qualifier. So then I helped put him at Gillette Junior College, and he ends up being National JUCO Player of the Year and goes to Oregon. Trying to get him back, but he improved too much and blew up, and couldn't get him back. But those were the first two. And then I had Joe Vizzolo, who played at Barking, unbelievable talent. Had Jabril Bello, had Armin Adamu, great Ossabor, Caleb Fuller. So yeah,
a nice little list there. You go. I mean, I don't know if you keep an eye on the SLB, but you keep an eye on British junior talent then.
Yeah, absolutely. That was my niche, right? Being a big guy coaching bigs, and then it was international recruiting, bringing a different type of player to a program. Different pool of players. That's what really helped me. My contacts through the 13 years of playing and developing those to get European kids, especially, to a place like Montana State that don't usually have access to that pool of players. That was my niche, to offer a program something different, and it worked out great. And that tremendous, especially with the Bello, Ossabor, Armin Adamu, Caleb Fuller going to back-to-back NCAA tournaments.
Was it difficult to leave Montana State after a decade there? Because you went to Oregon, but you went to, was it Utah first? Or
I was at Utah State. Yeah, I went
Utah
from
State
Montana
first,
to Utah State. Well, I went with Coach Sprinkle. So I worked for 3 coaches at Montana State, and very lucky to survive 2 coaching changes and be kept on. But then Coach Sprinkle, because we had that success of back-to-back champions in the Big Sky and going back-to-back NCAA tournament appearances, he got the job at Utah State and went with him to Utah State. And then great Ossabor came with us. And then we had a tremendous year. We won the Mountain West regular season title. Great was Mountain West Player of the Year. We had Josh Aduje, who was 6th Man of the Year in the Mountain West. So 2 British lads taking, those awards. And then we went to the NCAA tournament and got to the second round. So we beat TCU in the first round and then lost to Purdue in the second round. So it was a, unbelievable year. Fantastic. So very lucky.
And then obviously you went on to, was it just
Oregon
State?
So Coach Sprinkle then got the job at Washington. And I was going to go, I don't know if what he was looking to do with his staff, it was what my position or role would be. But then the head coach at Oregon State called me, offered me a job, who had been the head coach at the University of Montana. So my first year at Montana State, he was the head coach at Montana. And that's when we first ran across each other and kept in, see each other out, recruiting trail, bumped into each other, kind of kept a relationship going. And then he gave me a call out of the blue and said, am I going to Washington with Coach Sprinkle? And I said, maybe, I'm not sure. We said, well, I need a big man coach. I've got a spot. I don't want to hire anyone else. What do you think? And we talked about it for, 3 or 4 times on the phone, role, what my position would be, expectation, things of those sorts. He offered me the job, and I said, absolutely. So I ended up in Corvallis, Oregon, and was at Oregon State the last 2 years.
And now here you are in Colorado.
And here I'm in Colorado in Fort Collins. So, yeah.
Like I said, that full circle thing. And you've obviously been coaching now probably longer than you were playing.
So, this is I've been 16 years. Retired in 2010. So 16 years.
Wow.
In the college coaching. Yeah.
Right. Well, we're going to leave it there because we're going to run out of time very shortly. But I do want to ask, and I always like asking when someone's doing abroad, do you miss anything about the UK at all? Because obviously we speak the same language of the States, but obviously things are different, and you had the culture shock when you first went there. But is anything you miss from back home?
I mean, I still, when I go home, I still get off the plane and I'm just like, I'm home, even though home is in the US now. And I don't see myself, coming back to the UK now. So, but when I go home, I still miss, it's still home. I obviously miss my parents and my sister. Food, I miss the pub, just the little nuances, that I still miss England. I still consider it home. I'm still patriotic. I miss, I watch the footy on the TV here, but like, sounds silly, match of the day, like just little things. It's the little things when I'm home that I really appreciate. And yeah, I miss home.
Before I sign off, I think we've covered it all. Is there anyone you can think of you'd like to thank before we finish?
I covered everything. I mean, obviously, I've been very lucky. I've had a lot of help. The people in England that have helped me through it still to this day. Neil Hopkins, Lloyd Gardner, Jackson Gibbons. I mean, those three I owe them everything, because they helped me with, British lads, the recruiting, who's coming up, so, lads in Europe or who they've seen. They've been great, just friends, great mentors, and they've really helped me a lot. So I owe those three in particular a lot, because I wouldn't have had this journey for the last 16 years without their help. And I'm super appreciative of them as mentors, as friends and peers.
Right. Well, thank you very much for joining us today. I really do appreciate it and wish you all the best.
Appreciate it now. Thanks for having me so much. Thank you.
Hope you enjoyed that. As always, if you like what we do, please like and share the podcast on your socials. And if you have any suggestions for future guests, we have a dedicated Eurostep Brit account over on Blue Sky, or you can reach me via Hoops and Hockey on X or Instagram. Until the next time, my name's Niall Gray. Thanks for listening. You've been listening to the Eurostep Brit podcast, a Hoops and Hockey production.